Hello, and welcome back to the bonus series of the Alexander Society podcast. Today in our Mystery Corner, we're going to be covering the Girl Scout murders. This episode was originally recorded. This was originally recorded during the First Crusade episode, so it's a little bit older, but we wanted to get a little apology / have a backup in case we weren't able to push out an episode like last time, and so we're doing it again. We hope you enjoy, and let's get into the episode.
Okay, so before we really get into the topic, this is not our normal level of research. This is just really me reading an article or a Wikipedia page to Derek on a topic he doesn't really know a lot about. That's usually like a murder or a mystery, true crime, maybe related, just to kind of like give him information to like my like subjects of interest. So, do you know much about the Girl Scout murders, Derek?
I have heard of them. I think they happened like what 70s, 80s, and they were like
In the 70s. It was specifically June of 77.
okay, yeah, and it did happen in Oklahoma, didn't it? Yeah, and I think like they were, but I have heard of it though.
It's like it's one of those things in Oklahoma. Like, if those of you don't know, both of us are Oklahomans, but it's one of those things a lot of people in Oklahoma know about, but don't know the details. So it was the Girl Scout murders are 3 murders of Lori Lee Farmer, who was 8 years old at the time.
Oh my god!
Michelle Heather Grews, 9 years old, and Doris Denise Milner. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. Age 10.
Oh, I didn't know they were so young.
They were young.
Oh my god!
So the murders took place on the morning of June 13th, 1977 at Camp Scott in Mays County, OK. I have no idea where that is in Oklahoma, but I'm sure it's Oklahoma. So, yeah. So they were found on the campgrounds on a trail leading up to the showers. About 100, the article says 150 feet from their home. And the number one suspect was Jean Leroy Hart. The bodies were found at 6 a.m. The bodies were found, one of the girls' bodies was found in a sleeping bag just outside the tent area. They were all like tent mates, not cabin mates is the right word. And they started searching for them. They found all 3 of them eventually. And they were all in their sleeping bags, which is really weird to like kind of hide the bodies in the sleeping bags.
They were all tent mates. So were they taken from?
That's the idea.
I mean, I guess technically it's feasible, but like one guy taking
3 little girls sounds like kind of ridiculous, but not really.
I guess it's feasibly possible. Like if he used intimidate instead of like physically forcing them, just like used intimidation instead. But like, oh, so much can go wrong with that.
So later on, the testing showed that they were bludgeoned and strangled, and that they all had been raped.
Oh my god. Oh Jesus.
Yeah. So the only things found around the bodies were a flashlight, a red flashlight specifically, and it had a fingerprint on it, but it was too smudged to use for identification purposes. And there was a shoe print of a 9.5 shoe size found in the blood of the tent.
I imagine they probably matched that boot print with someone, didn't they?
There's a major, like I already mentioned him, Jean Leroy Hart is the major suspect. Other than that, there was nothing really else found, but there were reports about from 2:30 to 3 a.m. that morning, there was a lot of traffic on a remote road near the camp. Nothing really done. The camp was eventually evacuated and then later shut down. Shit like that happens. It makes sense that it gets shut down, to be perfectly honest. Jean Leroy Hart, the major suspect, actually died 2 years later. Honestly, almost to the day. He died June 4th of 79. So damn near to the day. And he was an escaped convict.
Oh, yeah, that
He had escaped from Mays County Jail. He was convicted of kidnapping, raping 2 pregnant women, as well as 4 counts of first-degree burglary.
So he has a little bit of an MO, and that this seems kind of like an escalation then. Kind of already on the lam, like
Yes. So, like, he was not a good person, even if you want to argue that he's innocent of the murders. He was raised about a mile from the camp. This article said that the wiki I'm using at Wikipedia. I know it's not very educated source, but this is just a brief overview for Derek that doesn't know a lot. We're not trying to be scholarly on this part. He was a Cherokee member of the Cherokee Nation and was arrested within a year of the murders. His lawyer, Gavin A. Isaacs. I don't know why I said it like an E. That's one of my hick accents coming out. He was tried in 79, March of 79. So like a couple months before he died. And one of the sheriffs said he was 1,000% sure Hart was guilty, but he was acquitted. Even though he was acquitted, he still had 103 years left on his sentence from what he escaped from.
oh fuck. Oh man, if you escape from a sentence like that,
Like he was at a he was at he had 308-year sentence before he escaped for the rape and burglary charges.
if you escape from a sentence like that, like you don't have any reason to not commit crimes.
If you get caught, you're going back to jail for the rest of your life no matter what. You don't care at that point. The only thing you have to fear is maybe the death penalty, but
Yeah, like the only thing you're maybe screwing up with that is like appeals. And I get the feeling this guy probably wasn't like too concerned with appeals, just from what the little bit you've told me.
you have to be really mentally disturbed to kidnap, rape, and then do a shit ton of burglary. Enough to get 308 years? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I just can't get over like what kind of headspace or what would be going through your mind if you had like a sentence like that and you escaped from prison.
He's like, I'm glad to be free, and I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want because they're going to catch me eventually. Because, like, Oklahoma is, like, dogged on their shit like that.
Yeah, like all of like the restrictions and all of what's holding somebody back from doing stuff like that because they're afraid of the consequences. At that point, you already have the consequences. You're actively escaping them. What is the harm in doing more? I can't. It's like you've opened Pandora's box. It's you've unlocked Pandora's box of scumbaggery.
So, Jean Leroy Hart died on June 4th, 1979. 2 years after the murders, he collapsed and died of a heart attack at 35. He was lifting weights and jogging. And so he was trying to like lose weight or some shit out in prison, like using the prison yard. Later, the families, two of the families, sued the Girl Scout Council for $5 million. On a 9-3 vote, the jurors found in favor of the council. To be fair, you can't really predict that. Like some random freaking escaped convict coming and murdering your wards in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
At a Girl Scout camp, you're not sleeping in shifts to like keep vigilance in the nights. Who the fuck would think to do that at a scout camp?
yeah, I'd need to know more of the details, but I feel like the most safety features that could be expected of that could be reasonably expected of a camp like that wouldn't in like any reasonable preparation probably wouldn't include a contingency for watching over to make sure that an entire tent full of girls doesn't get brutally murdered in the middle of the night.
There was a bunch of DNA testing happening. They showed that 3 of 5 probes on the DNA testing matched Hart's DNA. And statistically speaking, 1 in 7,700 Native Americans would line up with that. And then in 2008, they conducted new stuff on a pillowcase, but it was inconclusive because the DNA had deteriorated. But then in 2017, they did even more, because they had raised $30,000 in donations to do new DNA testing using the newest technology. But it wasn't until 2022 that testing that was released, and it It doesn't say it proves Hart did it, but the article says that it strongly suggests Hart's involvement. And apparently the results had been back as early as 2019, but they didn't want to. They waited for the family to release that information. There's been a couple documentaries. Someone Cry for the Children, the Girl Scout murders, based on a book by the same name. And then there's a 4-part ABC News documentary that was released on Hulu back in for the 45th anniversary.
I remember, like, now that you're talking about it, I remember vaguely, like, it's kind of something of a big deal in Oklahoma.
That's something I heard about for the longest time, but no one talks about the details.
Yeah, people still talk about it. Like the dead Girl Scouts found on a camp trail is
It's the horror story. It's the camping horror story of Oklahoma.
that's like a thing that comes up. And yeah, so this guy, it's it we're fairly sure that he did it, if what it sounds like.
At the very least, I don't care if I'm falsely fingering him because he's a piece of shit.
I feel like even if, like, I think that there's enough of a DNA hit, and
I'm fairly confident it was him, is what I can tell you.
yeah, plus it fits into at least like a sort of escalation of his MO. He was in the area, he knew the area. And did I don't know if you mentioned, did he wear a 9.5 size boot?
That's not in the wiki that I read.
I bet you he probably does. Sucks he died so soon.
He should have made. I am not really the kind of person that says torture people who committed crimes, but like certain crimes you deserve to like suffer.
That's
Like I'm very like me and you kind of like line up fairly good, like at least for the most part on stuff like this. When it comes to children, I don't care if like as long as we have evidence they did it, like, and we know ahead of time before we do anything. I don't care if you torture a child murderer. I,
that's a complicated area for me because, like,
like I'm very like me and you kind of like line up fairly good, like at least for the most part on stuff like this. When it comes to children, I don't care if like as long as we have evidence they did it, like, and we know ahead of time before we do anything. I don't care if you torture a child murderer. I,
yeah, that's the thing, is that I wouldn't lose sleep over this guy suffering, but I also don't trust anybody with the authority to make him suffer. Is the thing, if that makes sense.
I I don't trust people who are willingly going to dole out that punishment. However, I think he kind of deserves that punishment.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, and that gets into a bigger conversation about like what is the purpose of like a legal system or like a justice system? What is justice? Like, is it just vengeance, get somebody getting their just desserts, or is it like trying to direct and guide people towards not being like, does it have like the larger community around them in mind? Like, what do you do to this person that most benefits the community around them, whether it be like rehabilitation or just getting them out of the way so that they don't re-enter, so that they're never a threat to anybody else. That's kind of what I'm.
I understand exactly where you're coming from. I'm kind of the mindset is most punishment should be we punish them, they should be atoning for their crimes. But certain crimes are just so heinous that we throw that person away, whether we implement the death penalty or we go medieval on their ass and torture them, because sometimes it feels like we should go medieval. I understand why we should not have those rules in place to go medieval on those certain people, but it doesn't change the fact that it would feel nice for those certain people. It would feel very cathartic for those
I
horrible.
like I kind of like the I've been listening to a lot of Small Town Murder recently. You really got me onto them.
I corrupted him. Yeah.
Is it James' take on it that like you should just I think he brings it up several times. Like
It's brought up multiple times because just like us, it'll be brought up multiple times because the subject kind of necessitates to say something on it sometimes.
yeah, like it's his take on it is like just hand the guy over to the family of the victims and let them do whatever.
Exactly. Like, honestly, exactly. Like, sometimes I feel like most of the time, even if you want to say people are horrible, I don't think there are too terribly many people that are beyond redemption. Like, as much as I like argue, like, oh, humans are horrible, blah, 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 I still think a lot of the time there is a chance to fix those issues. That's about all I've got up for the Girl Scout murders.
Thank you for joining us for our second bonus episode here at the Alexander Society podcast. If you enjoyed what you like, please give us a rate and review on your streaming platform of choice. And if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find Derek at Visigoth on Twitter. The I is a 1 and the O is a 0. And you can find me, Tim, on Twitter at Tim, aka Otis. And then you can find the podcast, Alex Society Pod, on Twitter. And we also have a Facebook and Instagram at the Alexander Society Pod. Thank you, have a great day, and we will see you next time.